Sh Akhileshwar Prasad of the 1962 examination batch, one of the distinguished members of our service, has done a master's degree in economics from the Delhi School of Economics. He has served 4 crucial sectors of the economy, namely railways, industry, steel, and telecom. In 2001, he was awarded Avantika, a Lifetime Achievement National Service Award for his contributions in the telecom sector. In 2002, he was named the most distinguished alumnus of the Railway Staff College. After his retirement, Shri Prasad went on to head the National Institute for Financial Management at Faridabad. He has authored a number of papers, especially on financial accounting, transparency, and accountability. One of the very few IRAS officers to pen his memoirs, his book, Fossils of Governance, offers rare insight into predicaments of governance. It's my honor to call on stage a guiding light to many a probationer, including me, one of the giants of the service, to kindly share his thoughts with us today. Sh Akhileshwar Prasad, please, sir.
Sri Rajendra Kashyap, Financial Commissioner Railways, Mr. A.V. Paulus, retired Financial Commissioner Railways, my dear friend N.P. Srivastava, retired Financial Commissioner Railways, and all my friends and colleagues sitting here. First and foremost, let me thank the organizers from the core of my heart to have called me to this function. In fact, it gives me great pleasure to find that this annual day function of the IRAS has now become a regular feature. Nothing will please me more than to know that it continues like this, and I'm sure with the kind of enthusiasm which you have shown, it will remain like this. Well, friends, last year I could not make it because of some unavoidable reasons, and this year has been a special pleasure for me to come here because, unfortunately, I don't find my batchmates here, but for the entire batch, we joined in 1963. This year, 2013, marks 50th year of our service, of our being associated with the service. It's a great occasion for me and a source of great happiness to me. Friends, many of you who joined service recently may have just heard my name, but maybe they are seeing me for the first time. And I do not blame them, nor do I blame myself for it. Just that the circumstances were that way. NP is smiling, he knows the background. Perhaps even he doesn't know how I came into IRAS. I have not shared it with many, but some know it. See, when the results came out in 1963, some of us were told while in Missouri, undergoing foundational course training, that we will have to be content with the Indian police service. Now, can you imagine a person like Akhileshwar Prasad standing here before you in police uniforms? It was simply unacceptable. And I'll tell you why it happened and how. In that year, in 1963, they had 75 vacancies in the police service. And when they scanned through the list of successful candidates, they found that only 62 or 63 had opted for the police service. The rest had not. So the problem was how to fill up those balance 13 vacancies. The Home Ministry took a very unconventional view of the matter and decided that the first 13 among the central services will be allotted to the police. And that's how I found myself forced to do horse riding, etc. at Mussoorie, which I never liked. In fact, I was mortally afraid of that kind of activity. I remember Mr. Rajan, he was from the Karnataka cadre. I think it was then called Mysore cadre. He was Deputy Director Senior at the Academy. And Mr. Khosla was the Deputy Director Junior. Both were very senior officers. So one day I met Mr. Rajan and said that I would rather resign than join the police. I was so clear in my mind about it. He said, okay, let me see what I can do about it. And he came to Delhi, introduced me to Mr. Venugopal, whom he knew very well. And somehow I managed to wriggle out of that very tricky situation, and I came to IRAS. After that, it has been a thoroughly enjoyable journey for me, more ups than downs. And let me tell you honestly and truthfully, and with a sense of humility, that if I was able to reach a certain level in the hierarchy in the government of India, it was largely because I held that IRAS tag. And let me tell you, again, very honestly, wherever I went, whichever department I served, in whatever capacity, I had the great happiness to hear some of my junior colleagues, those who joined service recently, that they have not known me personally, I have not known them personally, and the reason for that is that almost last 17 or 18 years of my long tenure of 38 years, I spent outside the railways. Mr. Paulus is here. He will probably remember one day in the year 1984, was it, sir, that he called me to his chamber and said, Prasad, you are to pack up and go to the Department of Public Enterprises. I said, why? What have I done? Why do I deserve this? He said, no, you have done well and you ought to have experience of different sectors, and it's always good to have the experience of the outside world. You should not confine yourself to just railways. I took it as advice and came over to the Department of Public Enterprises as a director. Very soon thereafter, again possibly he will remember, I got my what is called NBR, next below rule promotion, within the cadre. And under the rules in those days, I don't know whether the same rule exists now, one could not hold a post outside the organization under NBR for more than 6 months. So I was feeling happy that very soon I'll have to go back to the cadre. But then a very funny thing happened during the period, and that was additional secretary of my department to whom I was reporting. He was an officer from Indian Revenue Service. He took 1.5 months leave, went abroad because his daughter was in the family way, and during his absence, a very important matter came up for cabinet discussion. Unfortunately, or fortunately for me, there was nobody else in that ministry who had even a vague idea of what the subject was all about. And I was handling it personally. So the secretary of the department and officer of the IAS from Andhra Pradesh cadre, I used to have very little interaction with him, naturally. He called me one day and said, this is the matter, and your AS is on leave. Can you tell me whether you can handle it? I said, I'll try. Whether I can handle it to your satisfaction, I can't say, but I will definitely try. And I did try. Again, the background of IRAS came to my help. The thoroughness with which I was trained in the service by my superiors, that came in handy. And somehow it so happened that he felt very pleased with the outcome of the effort. After that, he called me one day and asked me a few personal questions about my background, which service I belong to, how long have I been working in that capacity, and whether I would like to shift to the mainstream of the ministry. I was working in those days at the CGO complex. He asked me whether I would like to come over to Udyog Bhavan. I said, sir, there is hardly any point in my coming to Udyog Bhavan because under the NBR, I am supposed to go back to my cadre very soon. Now, I didn't know that, he was himself an establishment expert. He said, but then there is a possibility that, you may get promoted in the ministry as joint secretary and then you need not go back. I said, I know, sir, but then one has to be in the panel of joint secretaries before one gets promoted. He said, yes, I know that's a very difficult process to go through, but anyway, we still have 3 months' time. Let us see what can be done. And before the period of 3 months came to an end, against all possible odds which you can think of, including resistance from a particular service, I found myself a JS in the ministry. So one more opportunity lost of coming back to the cadre. Then after completion of that tenure, I was posted to Northeast Frontier Railway. At long last, I am back in the cadre. I was feeling very happy. But to my misfortune, in those days, Assam was on the boil. Conditions were very, very difficult, and one had to tread his way very, very carefully. But there was a certain situation where some of the demands being made by those who were spearheading the agitation were impossible to meet for any organization. So I and another colleague of mine, we decided that we will do things the right way. And the result was that 2 of us, myself and a colleague of mine, were declared persona non grata. Now one day, manager of Northeast Frontier Railway in those days, he called me to his chamber and said, do you know why you have been escorted to the office? I said, frankly, I don't know, nobody has told me. And he said, from now onwards, you will need an escort wherever you go. Even if you go to the bazaar or you go to the club in the evening, you will have to have an escort. Please promise you will never move out without an escort. And Mr. Anand was such a loving person. When I found him so concerned and agitated, I also became concerned and agitated, and the full import of what had happened dawned upon me. After that, another 6 months passed, 8 months passed. Things were getting more and more and more difficult. Therefore, the railway board, in their wisdom and discretion, decided that I must be pulled out of that railway. But again, they could not find a vacancy for me in the railways. I was seconded to the Department of Telecom. and I spent 5 years in that capacity. Before completion of my tenure in telecom, I was impaneled for the post of Additional Secretary, and I became Additional Secretary Steel and Mines. Two things happened then. In fact, there was a posting order for me to go to Railway Staff College, Vadodara, as principal. But the ministry did not carry out that order for two reasons. Firstly, they took the plea that I was only halfway through my tenure. And secondly, I was also doubling up at that time as Chairman SAIL due to some administrative exigencies. So just imagine, my friends, I lost another opportunity of coming back to the cadre. I mean, you know, it's a very funny story, but then it's true. Then, after some time, in early 1997, I was fortunate enough to have been impaneled for secretary level posting. And I was thinking that possibly this may open up further opportunities for me. And it just so happened that, you know, by chance, in that particular year, I was the only one among the 3 finance and account services to have been impaneled. So when the post of financial commissioner would fall vacant, that's what people thought, I might be the most obvious choice. But that was not to be, because 4 months before the post of FC fell vacant, the post of Member Finance Telecom fell vacant, and naturally the government found it very convenient to post me there. So thereafter, you know the story. This is how I lost the opportunity of coming back to railways for nearly 17 years of my 38 years. But the upside of it is that this gave me an enormous kind of, varied kind of experience in different sectors, which would have been otherwise denied to me. Look at it this way. I think one of the speakers who will be addressing you, Mr. Upadhyay, he is a management expert, and he is going to talk to us about change management in railways. I wish I had occasion to hear him first before giving this address of mine, because change management is really what we did in telecom. You know, Telecom Commission at that time had 5 permanent members, including the chairman. The chairman and myself were from non-telecom stream. The other 3 members were all technical members from the telecom itself. They were born and brought up in telecom. And one of the most important issues that we faced in telecom at that time was that the government expected very speedy opening up of the sector, for the simple reason that after the opening up of the economy in 1991, nothing was happening in any other sector for quite some time, and they found telecom as the only story which they could sell to the outside world. And naturally, there was need also to restructure the telecom sector for the simple reason that we were being denied the advantages of technology, and we were in fact stagnating in a way. And you know, change management, the biggest problem in change management is that those who are likely to benefit from that change. They are never an organized lot. Unless they see the benefits flowing out of that change on the ground and realize that it has been for their advantage, they don't organize themselves to oppose those who are no changers. And majority are no changers, status quoists, because it's convenient to have it that way. If you go for a change, you have to work harder. There are risks involved. There are problems to be faced. And you never know, you may trip up somewhere, commit a mistake. 10 years down the line, somebody will question you. You may be hauled up in a court of law, as is happening now. So the status quoists and the no changers are always an organized lot. So I cannot tell you what kind of difficulties we faced in the matter of opening up the telecom sector. But the kind of experience which it gave me, the kind of insight it gave me into these complex management issues would have been denied to me. Now let me once again point out that IRAS is a cadre which still has a brand name. It has a prestige of its own. They have done very well inside. Many of our colleagues have done excellently outside the railways. We know them all. And within the railways, there is, really speaking, a lot of scope to bring about change. No doubt we have done very well. At one level, we have managed a very complex, a huge public utility, having a lot of social burdens, with aplomb, with a lot of efficiency, with a lot of commitment, and we have retained its primary position in the economy. We have kept it viable. But at another level, what we are missing is what we could have done, but we have not been able to. That's where lies a challenge for us. Professionally, we are one of the best professionally managed cadres. There can be no denying that. But we have to really put it to test somewhere by bringing about a change somewhere so that our organization becomes one of the best in the whole world. It is one of the best in the country, but we would prefer to have it one of the best in the whole world. I know that there are challenges in the sense that, the kind of environment in which we worked 20 years ago, 25 years ago, has now changed. And, things have become vitiated. There are complex situations coming up which you face every day. If you take a decision, you may be challenged for that later. If you don't take a decision, your conscience will hurt you. So there is a big problem here. But then we have to go on trying. And with the background of professional knowledge that we have, I think you can do very well. Mr. Rakshit is retiring today. I wish him all the best in life and all the best to our colleagues here and even those who are not present here and their family members. Thank you very much again for inviting me to this function. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I can only comment that perhaps we can explain why we are resigned to such a police service is perhaps that sir resigned from police service. Thank you, sir. It's been a pleasure hearing you.